going to be a... Okay, so Masechet Ketuvot, Gemara. My son, not Joey, Shalomo asked me a question. He said, "Why do we have to study Gemara?" He said, we have Mishneh Torah. We know what the conclusions are, so we know what the halacha is. So why is it important to study Gemara? Why do we even do that? Just open the Mishneh Torah, get the law, halacha lemaaser, halacha kevuah, and get the law from the Mishneh Torah. You understand the question? Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
Rambam deals with it already.
Okay, go ahead, tell me. So why study Gemara?
He says not to. If you don't have enough time, he says not to spend time on it.
Right, so we shouldn't study Gemara.
According to, depends who you are.
Okay, let's say you're a person who's worthy. You studied the Chumash, you studied the Mishnayot.
Because he believes even people that are worthy, they haven't mastered the language.
No problem. You mastered everything. You're worthy. You've reached a level where you can study Gemara. What's the reason that people should study Gemara if they have the Mishneh Torah? That's the question, and I want to give you the answer. The purpose, and Rambam says that a person should have one third, right? When he studies Torah, Talmud Torah, he should divide it into one third. The last third being Talmud. Of course, it includes the Gemara, but not only the Gemara. So, what's the point of that?
But isn't the Talmud that refers to a philosophical understanding?
Doesn't matter. Wait, let me explain first of all. He says Talmud. I said, not only the Gemara. Okay. So now the question is, why? You have the Torah Shebichtav. I know. Halacha, I know. Why do I have to study Gemara? And I think it's important. Gemara, Talmud, the last third is methodology. What is methodology about? What does that even mean? So I have Harambam, makes Pesach Halacha. I'll give you an example. I gave a class about this. Harambam says you can pray Mincha until Shekiat HaHama. Very simple. After Shekiat HaHama, you can't bring the Korban Talmid Shel Ben Arba'im after Shekiat HaHama is no good. Too late. Very simple, right? And yet, on this, you can have all these shitot that really Shekiat HaHama is not Shekiat HaHama. It's set Kochavim. Some people say 3 stars. Some people say 17 stars. Some people say no stars, but yes stars. When you don't have methodology, you can have Harambam giving you all the Piskei Halacha, and you don't know how to process information. You're processing information incorrectly. So the conclusions are wonderful, but you have to be a Talmid Chacham to be able to reach the conclusions and process them properly. So you'll see many, many times the Halacha is very clear. Then they'll pick the Halacha and they'll Na'ila until we can have a Samuch L'Shkiat HaHama. What is Samuch L'Shkiat HaHama? It means after Shkiat HaHama. But he says Samuch L'Shkiat HaHama. No. He didn't mean Samuch L'Shkiat HaHama. He meant something else. All the time. So we study Gemara because Gemara teaches us proper rabbinic methodology through which to study Torah, through which to process the Torah. Okay, so this is very important, number one. Number two, studying Gemara is foreign to the Western mind. Why do I say that? Because in the West, you have ideas. You have philosophical ideas. These ideas, these concepts, this is the ikar. And if you want to tell me something, you want to convince me of something, it has to fall within the particular ideas that I have, whatever those ideas are. If it doesn't fall within the idea that I present to you, it's not good. Judaism is not interested in ideas as such. We're interested in text. We got the Torah, Shebichtav. We have the Chumash from Moshe Rabbeinu. We have by the way, we have water here. Please, anybody needs wants water. We have thank you. Okay. We have the Chumash from Moshe Rabbeinu. We have the Nevi'im. We have the Ketuvim. We are interested in text. Anything you tell me, Show me within the text. We don't care about just an idea. Your ideas are wonderful. That's for the Greeks, Greek philosophers, Platonic thinking, Aristotle. Everything is some idea that you grab out of the sky. And then you need an Ubermensch to tell you what the idea is. We don't care about that. So now, the Gemara is about textual analysis. And it teaches you, and this comes back to the first question, the Gemara teaches you to reject Greek thinking, conceptual thinking, metaphysics, and start thinking like a hacham, from the yeshiva, one of the yeshivot in Bared, or one of the yeshivot in Eretz Yisrael. And when you think like a hacham, and then you see Neila, samuch l'shkiat hama, doesn't really mean samuch l'shkiat, but why do you write samuch l'shkiat hama? So if you have the concept, of course the concept overrides what Harambam said. Harambam must have meant the same thing as my concept in my mind. But if you know how to analyze text, you realize samuch l'shkiat hama actually means samuch l'shkiat hama. It's a big hidush. You understand? So this is what we're doing. We're going to study the Gemara. We're going to learn how to learn. We're going to learn the methodology. And hopefully this will open up our brains and teach us lehavdil, ben kodesh lechol, ben or lechoshech, and also ben Yisrael to Greek thinking, to metaphysical thinking, to Ubermensch, to Godolatry. So let's begin studying the Gemara. That was a short introduction, and I'm assuming that everybody can hear me. Yes? Just raise your hand. Perfect. I saw somebody raising your hands. Thank you for that. Okay. So we are now going to begin Masechet Bet Amud Aleph, the very beginning, and just for the people who are in the virtual world, we have a whole group of people here as well. So welcome to the Shi'ur. All right. I'm going to read. בתולה נישאת ליום רביעי, ואלמנה ליום חמישי. A very simple sentence. I'll explain it in a moment. But before I explain it, let me read a little more. שפעמיים בשבת בתי דין יושבים בעיירות, ביום שני וביום חמישי. שאם היה לו טענות בתולים, היה משכים לבית דין. Okay, first of all, you can already tell there's something wrong with the Mishnah. The style of the Mishnah is a bit disturbing. Before I even tell you the content, right? Because, in the same sentence, right? It says, why is betula niset liyom revi'i ve'almana liyom chamishi, she pa'amayim b'shabbat, and she im haya lo ta'anat betulim. Something not elegant about the Mishnah. Rav Sharira Gaon, one of the great books to get at Sharira Gaon, I studied it many years ago. I gave a class on that in Eretz Yisrael on Shabbat, so it's not recorded. And one of the things that Rav Sharira Gaon says is that the style of the Mishnah was the most elegant Hebrew. Rabbeinu HaKadosh, when he formulated the Mishnah, it's beautiful Hebrew. Harambam also discusses that as well. But here we see that the Mishnah, it doesn't appear to be elegant. If I give you a sentence and I say because twice in the same sentence, doesn't sound right. There's a few more problems in the Mishnah. Let's study it. Betulani said Liyom Levi. So the Mishnah is teaching us that when there's a wedding, if the woman is a betula, the wedding should be when? Yom Revi'i. If it's an almana, when should the wedding be? Yom Hamishi. Before we even continue, I want to ask a question. Is this halakha? I mean, do we follow it? Interesting. Why not? Nobody's cholek on the Mishnah, right? There's not like we say, no, the halakha is not like this Mishnah. No, nobody says so. So, and again, another unusual feature about the Mishnah is that it's the halakha, and yet we don't really follow it, so we have to understand it. All right. Well, when a guy gives when I do a wedding, do I ask the guy, wait, have you been married before? Have you been, Oh, okay, the marriage has to be on Thursday, but the place is taken on Thursday. Can we do it on Sunday? Can't do it on Sunday. Does that ever happen? Does that conversation ever take place? All right. No. All right. So Betulani said, Liyom Revi'i, Almana Liyom Chamishi. שפעמיים בשבת בתי דינים יושבים בעיירות. Now what's the reason? That twice every week the Bet Din would sit down in the cities ביום שמיני וביום חמישי, on Monday and on Thursday. So what's the logic? So the logic is as follows. A person got married with the almanah on Wednesday. He wakes up the next day. What day is it? Thursday. And if you know he needs to go to Bet Din, the Bet Din is there. Because otherwise, he might change his mind, does go to Bet Din, doesn't go to Bet Din. Here, immediately, he wakes up the next day, he has a ta'anat betulim. It ends up, it appears that she wasn't a betula. So he wants to go to Bet Din. So אם היה לו טענת בתולים, היה מסכים לבית דין. Okay. Before we continue, what's wrong with the Mishnah? Other than the things that I already made you aware of.
Why not Sunday also?
Right. You're saying, Betulani said liyom revi'i v'almana liyom chamishi, and then you give me a reason why on Wednesday for the Betulah. The Mishnah should have said, Betulani said liyom revi'i, shemer lo tara betulim, hayim maskim lebet din, and then said v'almana liyom chamishi.
Not to be any day actually, because Almana doesn't require it.
Okay, fair enough. But let's say there's a reason. Let's say there's a reason why almana liyom chamishi. You're correct. But let's assume there's a reason. The Mishnah said almana liyom chamishi, but the formulation of the Mishnah is a bit odd. You see what I'm saying? Yes. All right. And the next question is, and why doesn't it give us the reason for almana? All right. I mean, that's also a question. So give us the reason for it. Doesn't give us the reason for almana. Okay. I want to read you the Yerushalmi. Okay. Okay, I'm going to read you the Yerushalmi on this Mishnah. 1 second. The very first Yerushalmi. Here we go. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam v'shamayim v'arach.
Yerushalmi.
Okay, I'm reading the Yerushalmi. Betulani said, the Yom Revi'i. Okay. בר כפרה אמר, בפני שכתיב בה, or שכתיב בם ברכה. Okay, what's the reason שבתולני said ליום רביעי ואלמנה ליום חמישי? He actually has a much better explanation. He says שכתיב בם ברכה, meaning בר כפרה is now going to give a reason, not just for why אלמנה said ליום רביעי, he's going to give a reason for why Almana is Yom Revi'i and I'm sorry, Betula is Yom Revi'i and Almana is Yom Chamishi. He gives a reason for both. So he says, what's the reason? Because if you look at the Pesukim in the Torah, there's a beracha. It's confusing answer because immediately the Gemara says, what are you talking about? There is no beracha on Yom Revi'i. The beracha is on Thursday and Friday, Thursday for the fish and so on, and Friday for the animals and man, right? So on Thursday, the beracha is for the birds and the fish. And on Friday, the beracha is for Adam and Haba. Okay, so the answer is Amar Kapara Revi'i or Hamishi or Shishi. So basically what Kapara is saying is as follows. The reason Betulani said Leyom Revi'i is because the wedding is in the daytime, but if it's at nighttime, it's already Thursday, right? So nighttime is going to be Thursday. So that's Beracha. Almana Leyom Hamishi, because nighttime, if they get married in the Yom Hamishi, nighttime when he's with her, it's going to be Friday. Makes perfect sense. Beautiful answer. Any problem with this answer?
And how is he going to go to the bed?
Well, wait, it doesn't matter. Bar Kapara is giving a completely different answer. I'm sorry, Albert.
It says Yom instead of Lev.
Okay, but no problem. But that's all Leom. So he says all. He says, Amar Rabbi Yosef, Ta'amad Bar Kapara, Revi'i or Hamishi. Hamishi or Shishi. Okay, fine.
It also doesn't touch on the white.
Somebody's asking a question here. Go ahead. Somebody say something?
Shabbat also has a beracha.
Shabbat also has beracha. The Gemara, the Yerushalmi continues, says That's a continuation of the Yerushalmi. It actually says Shabbat also is beracha, but it says that there the beracha is in the day, not on the people. So, meaning on Thursday it's a biological beracha, on Friday it's a biological beracha. So we want beracha for them. So first we understand the question. The question is obvious. How can Bar Kapara say what's the reason? The Mishnah says the reason. בתולה נישאת ליום רביעי ואלמנה ליום חמישי שפעמיים בשבת בתי דינים יושבים בעיירות. So what is Bar Kapara talking about in the Yerushalmi when he says what he says? Okay, the question is clear?
In other words, Bar Kapara is giving a time for the Mishnah.
I don't say. I'm saying that. I mean, yeah, exactly. He's giving a time for the Mishnah, but the Mishnah already gave a time. So what are you doing? Who needs you? You know, Mishnah says one thing. Comes around, no, here's the reason. You're cholek on the Mishnah? Okay, I don't know. It seems odd. Bar Kapara would be cholek on the Mishnah. Okay, so let me tell you, first of all, I want to save you agony.
Bar Kapara, he was a Tanna, no?
He was in the days of Rabbeinu HaKadosh. Okay? I would say, if I'm not mistaken, a junior to Rabbeinu HaKadosh. But from the days of Rabbeinu HaKadosh. So here it goes. So there's a... I'm sorry?
Rabbi, one question. What it means that on Thursday and on Friday there is a beracha? It's like Siman Tov?
Yes, like a Siman Tov, meaning since Hashem gave a beracha on Thursday, that's when you want to be with the Betulah. Since Hashem gave a beracha on Friday, that's when you want to be with the Almanah. So it's a Siman, a nice Siman for this. That's it. That's what Bar Kapara says, Siman Tov. Nothing more than that.
Is it Tuesday also bracha? Because Pavan Kitov?
No, it doesn't say Perur Vu. There's no biological beracha. Here it's a biological beracha. Okay, let me explain. There's the En Yaakov, you're familiar with the En Yaakov, but then the En Yaakov, there's also, not just in the Talmud Bavli, there's the En Yaakov and the Talmud Yerushalmi in the same book. And then there's the Shemuel Ashkenazi. The Shemuel Ashkenazi, he has a perush on the Yerushalmi part of the En Yaakov. And what he says, the name of the perush is Yefat Mar'eh. And what he says is as follows. What he says is, what? Yeah, you show me how to do that. Yeah, what he says is that, yeah, exactly.
This is you or them?
No, that's not, yeah, that's somebody else. This is me, I'm on top.
Got it.
There you go, perfect, amazing. Okay, so what he says is something that is correct. The original version of the Mishnah, the original Nosach of the Mishnah was, Betulani said, Le'yom Revi'i ve'almana Le'yom Hamishi. That was the original Nosach of the Mishnah. What we have before us today, Shepa'amayim b'Shabbat, was an addition into the Mishnah, an interpolation that comes from the Tosefta, meaning the Tosefta is the makor for the Penei Shepa'amayim b'Shabbat, Batei Dinim Yoshevim ba'ayarot. That explanation of the Tosefta was at some point in time interpolated into the Mishnah. And now you understand why the Mishnah doesn't, as a literature, from a literary perspective, it doesn't seem to be elegant. Originally it was Betulani said Yom Revi'i v'almana Yom Hamishim. Shepa'amayim b'Shabbat was the Tosefta explaining why Betulani said Yom Revi'i. And now we understand why Bar Kapara can say what he said, because Bar Kapara was giving an alternative that it wasn't in the Mishnah, Shepa'amayim b'Shabbat. So he's giving an explanation to the Mishnah as it was originally formulated. Okay, so that's first. So first, I wanted you to all understand the Mishnah. I wanted you to understand the two layers in the Mishnah, one being the original Nosach and the other being an interpolation that came from the Tosefta. And of course, the Tosefta is authoritative. We're not putting it down. And it became part of the Mishnah. So for example, if we look at Harambam, when Harambam brings the Mishnah, he brings the Mishnah with the interpolation of the Tosefta. But just that's number one.
How much of it was interpolation?
Original Mishnah was Betulani said Le'yom Revi'i, ve'almana Le'yom Hamishi. Period. That's it. That was the original Mishnah.
So
and that's why in the Yerushalmi it has the older version, and it has Bar Kapara says, because what Bar Kapara would say on our version of the Mishnah wouldn't make any sense, of course. Moreover, you're going to see that the first question of the Gemara is a question that makes no sense on the new version of the Mishnah. I'm just going to read it. I'll take your question. Amar Rav Yosef, Amar Rav Yehuda, Penema Amru Betulani said Yom Levi'i. What do you mean Penema Amru? We said שפעמיים בשבת בתי דינים יושבים. How can you start the Gemara? What's the reason that בתולה נישאת ליום רביעי? It's right there in the Mishnah. I'm sorry, you had a question, Mrs. Carway.
When you said that the Rambam took the Tosefta also with it, but if he felt that it wasn't necessary, he would have taken it out.
No, I didn't. It became part of the Mishnah. That's it. It became part of the Mishnah. At some point in time, the interpolation became part of the Mishnah, and that's the way. I'm not objecting. I'm not saying that that the Mishnah is wrong. I'm explaining to you how the Mishnah developed over time. So here we have the original of the Mishnah, the days of Rabbeinu HaKadosh, a latter interpolation that came from the Bichiyah and the Tosefta, and at some point in time, I don't know exactly when, but it was after Rav Yosef, because Rav Yosef says what he says. So maybe in the Sephardic point in time, and then Yodea. Okay, it's the same way. But the Sephardim also, they added things to the Gemara, which became part of the text of the Gemara. I would say more than that. It's not just the Sephardim added things to the Gemara. When you do the Surata Dishma Teta of the Gemara, you have to take account of the Sephardic additions. Meaning, it's not like, this is some tragedy, they ruined this. No. When you do Surata Dishma Teta, you'll see that the Sephardic additions often are part of the structure of the sugya that we have. Okay, I want to continue unless online. Does anybody have a question there? Okay. No
Yeah,
question.
Cham,
Who is that?
this is Freddie.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you familiar with Rimi Gash's explanation for Mipene Ma'amiru?
Who? What?
Ibn Megas.
What was his explanation? Tell me.
He says Mipene Amru, not I could read you the text itself. He says Mipene Ma'amiru lo ba lehodhi ta'am betulaset b'yom harabi'i.
Yeah, exactly. Okay,
He
so
says
let
it's
me.
not coming to explain.
Yeah, I understand. Yes, that's my explanation as well. That's the explanation that my father gave me as well. So let's wait. Okay? So I'm going to read it now. So first of all, we all understand the Mishnah. Now we're going to read the Gemara. Amar Rav Yosef, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shemuel. Mipnei ma amru betula niset liyom revi'i. What's the reason why betula niset liyom revi'i? And I want to explain the meaning of this question in a moment, but let's just see what he says. Lefi sheshaninu. We have another Mishnah. Shaninu is Milashon Mishnah. So there's another Mishnah. This is later on in the 5th chapter of Masechet Ketuvot. Higia zeman velo niseu ochelot mishelo ve'ochelot bateruma. The Mishnah says as follows, and let me read to you the Mishnah so you understand it better. For those of you who have the Gemara, you can open up the Gemara to Daf Nun Zayin, Amud Aleph. The Mishnah is there, right? So if you look at the Mishnah, it says, Daf Nun Zayin, Amud Aleph, right? נותנים לבתולה 12 חודש, מי שתבעה הבעל לפרנס את עצמה. Okay. Now, back then, the Kiddushin and the Nisu'in were done separately. So, now, the Reuven goes to Rachel and he says, Hariyat Mekudeshet li. He accepts the Kiddushin. Now, he has to do Nisu'in. She says, look, I'm not ready. Can we wait a little while? She says, you know what? I'm also not ready. How much time do you need? Maximum time, 12 months. There's maximum time between the Kiddushin and the Nisu'im, 12 months. So it says, נותנים לבתולה 12 חודש. איפה שזה בתולה. מי שתבעה הבאה לפרנס את עצמה. He said, I want to get married. No, she says now, I need an extra 12 months. Each one has 12 months. They can push out the Nisu'in for 12 months. So he has to get ready, he has to buy a house, he has to, I don't know, find a business maybe, then buy a house, right? Almanach gets 30 days. If the 12-month period or the 30-day period as a thing expires, and he still didn't right? In that case, he has a financial obligation. And what is that financial obligation? Until now, she was living with her father, and her father was paying for her food. Now he has to start paying for her food. A kind of a financial penalty for not having her machlis al because he should be machlis al. He should be paying for her food. Now, in addition, there's the law of terumah. It's not germane to our topic, but I'll just bring you the law of terumah. According to halakha, really, a kohen that didn't need to eat kiddushin, to a woman, she can eat terumah because now she's kinyan kaspo of the kohen. The oraita. Hachamim said no. They said if she's going to eat terumah, which is a deoraita law, she might be ma'achila, etachiyah, I don't know who. So they said, no eating terumah. Until, of course, machlis al chuppah. Once machlis al chuppah, she can eat terumah, of course. But they say in this Mishnah, the same way, now he has to be mfanes ota. Also, she can eat terumah, but it's not halakha. Now.
But isn't it later in the Gemara it says something about 3 days on the man? That he, if let's say the time expires, he only has a certain amount of days.
We'll see. This is the sugya. This is what we're studying. So the sugya is going to get exactly into the point of what happens. We'll see in a moment. In this sugya.
One quick thing. It
Go ahead.
bothered me that it said ochelot in plural.
Right.
Because we're talking about a single person, you know.
Right.
Always
When we
talking
say
singular and talking in plural.
when we say notenila betula, we mean all betulot, right? It's a general statement, right? We don't mean right. Notenila betula shenem asal chodesh, uchshem shnotim la isha kach notim la ish, ulama shnotim la megez ma lo niseu. Okay, interesting question. First of all, no problem. I understand it, but for now I'm going to go back to our sugya. Interesting. Why does it switch from Yapin to Rabim? Okay. I agree with the question. So now it comes out of Yosef and he says something very interesting. He says like this. Let me read to you Rambam on the law of Betula Niset Liyom Levi'i. Perek Yod Aleph. I think Ilchot Ishut. Sefer Nashim Ilchot Ishut. Perek Yod Aleph. I think Alachat Tevav. It should be here. Just can't see it. Tevav here. Okay. Listen to Rambam. Again, Perek Yod Aleph, Ilchot Ishut, Halachat Tetvav. ועד מתי יש... No, no, I'm in the wrong place. Perek Yod, I'm sorry, my mistake. Perek Yod, thank you, Halachat Tetvav, מחילה. Perek Yod, Halachat Tetvav. מקום שאין בית דין יושבים בו אלא בשני ובחמישי בלבד, בתולה נישאת ביום רביעי. שאם הייתה לו טענת בתולים, ישכים לבית דין. So Rambam basically brings our Mishnah, unlike our Mishnah which says בתולה נישאת ביום רביעי ואלמנה ליום חמישי שפעמיים בשבת. Rambam has a more elegant version, right? He talks only about בתולה נישאת ביום רביעי. What's the reason? הייתה לו טענת בתולים, ישכים לבית דין. Okay, let me ask you a question. When Rambam says betula niset biyom levi'i, what is he saying? Is it a chovah? For example, a person chayav adam lekot megillah balayla velishnota bayom. Chayav. What does it mean when he says again betula niset? Is it a chovah? It's not a chovah. Of course.
Also contingent on the bet din.
Excuse me?
It's also contingent on when the bet din
No,
sits.
but even, let's say there's a bet din. Let's say there's a bet din only on Monday and only on Thursday. But the point is, it doesn't matter. Is it a chovah? My question was, is it a chovah?
On her, no.
On him.
Yeah. Oh, for the day you mean, the day.
Is it a chovah for the man to marry her if he wants to use the betula? Right? And what did Rambam say? Betula niset biyom levi. Is it a chovah? No, it's not a chovah, obviously.
They know.
It's not a chovah. So what does this law even mean? Now, our Mishnah also, very unusual for a Mishnah to state something that, yeah, they get married, or the husbands marry them, machnisan lachuppah on Yom Revi'i. What does this Mishnah mean? Now you understand the point of Rav Yosef. Yeah, it's a problem. What type of Mishnah is this? Yeah, it's not optional. You can't say Kriyat Shema earlier, right? So what does the Mishnah mean here? You understand my question? That's exactly what I was saying. What is the function of the Mishnah? The Mishnah is describing an actual practice. It was a practice, it was a minhag, that if she's a betula, you would marry her on Wednesday. That was a minhag. But what do I care? If it's halakha, tell me, hayav, no problem. If it's not halakha, what are you wasting my time with?
So how do you know it's a minhag?
Betula niset. It says betula niset. It doesn't say hayav adam nisa betula b'yom revi'i. Right? It says hayav adam because of Megillah. Hayav adam because of Kriyat Shema. It's chiyuvim. Here it just says betula niset. It's describing. It even says it in a passive way. Betula niset. What type of Mishnah is that? Okay. Amar Rav Yosef. Amar Rav Yehuda. Amar Shemuel. Mipnei ma amru betula niset. That's exactly his question. What is the function of this? And now we're going to see. לפי ששנינו, הגיע הזמן ולא נישאו, אוכלות בשלו ואוכלות בתרומה. We have another Mishnah that says that if the 12-month period expires in the case of a betula, and the nisuin was not performed, אוכלות בשלו ואוכלות בתרומה. Right? יכול, הגיע הזמן באחד בשבת, יהיה מעלה למזונות. Would you be able to say that, let's say, the 12-month period expired on Sunday? Would you have to be ma'aleh mezonot? You would say yes. Because when you said, there was no exceptions. So now, lechach shaninu. The purpose of our Mishnah is to give a restriction on that Mishnah. I'm going to explain in a moment. But for now, lechach shaninu. The Tulani said, Leyom Revi'i. Understand the point of Rav Yosef again. We have a Mishnah in Daf Nun Zayin. The Mishnah in Daf Nun Zayin sets forth a law. That is a law. The law is, that's a law. Why do we have our Mishnah? To tell us that since the common practice was that a betula gets married on Wednesday, if the 12-month period expires on another day, on Sunday, he doesn't have to pay her mizonot on Sunday, or on Monday, or on Tuesday. Starting Wednesday, he has to pay her mizonot. You understand? Let me explain this to you. What's the logic? What type of...
So shouldn't this Mishnah be positioned nearer to that one?
Okay, let's say no. But I have a better thing. What's the logic? What's the legal reasoning here? So I want to explain to you the legal reasoning. So we have what's called, in Dinei Mamonot, we have what's called Minhag HaMedina. I'll give you an example. Let's say I own a house. So I want to rent the house to one of you guys. I go to the Uven, I have a house to rent for you. How much? We sign a lease contract, whatever. Okay. He rents the house, it's winter, the boiler doesn't work. There's no heat. Now the lease contract didn't say anything about a boiler. Just said, I'm renting the house, I'm this block, do I have to give him a boiler? So since it's Minhag HaMedina, that when a person rents a house to a tenant, that the minhag is to have a boiler, so people don't freeze to death in winter. I had to give him a boiler, but the contract didn't say so. But that's Minhag HaMedina. The Minhag HaMedina, one second, let me finish. The Minhag HaMedina has legal standing for purposes of Dinei Mamonot. That's first. I'll get to you in a moment. But first, I want you to understand, right? You can't ignore Minhag HaMedina when you have Dinei Mamonot. Right? So whatever the business practice is, I say that I'm going to buy, within 5 days, I'll buy $100 worth of this stock. Now, the 5th day comes out on a weekend.
Tiene que ver con los precios de tipo mobiliario, gasolina.
Are you talking to me? Oh, yeah, there were no. You just, okay. So the Minhag Medina is that there's no, you can't buy publicly traded equities on the weekend. So it's going to be the next day. That's Minhag Medina. And it has standing for Dina Mamonot. What was your question?
I forgot at this.
Okay, all right. No, okay, that's fine. Now, what are we saying here?
Trying to focus on him.
Okay, what are we saying here? When we say that Betulani said we're describing a minhag, the Mishnah is registering a formal minhag. Why? Well, I want to know what the minhag is. Why? Because now you understand, since this is the minhag medina that Betulani said, and the Mishnah is registering it, it affects the other Mishnah. When the other Mishnah said you have to buy the shares on this and this day, I say that facetiously, but it's a weekend. There's no business on weekends. Oh, the other Mishnah says you have to marry her after 12 months, but we don't marry Betulot on Sundays. We marry the Minhag Medina is to do it on Wednesday. Now we say, and therefore he doesn't have to pay our mezonot for the 3-day period. Those 3 days, whatever that comes out. You understand? Yes? Beautiful. Okay, so now you understand Amar Rav Yosef. Amar Rav Yosef, Amar Shemuel, מפני מה אמרו בתולה נישאת ליום רביעי, לפי ששנינו הגיע הזמן ונשאו, אכלו בטל ומה. Okay, you understand? Now, give me a moment to catch myself, because I have the notes here that I took listening to my father's class, and I just see if there's anything I wanted to add. That was it. Okay. I'm going to give you now online. Are there any questions? I'll take a single question from anybody online who is brave enough to. Yes, go ahead.
You said that the original Mishnah doesn't have the sentence שפעמים בשבת בתי דינים יושבים. It was inserted from the Tosefta. How do we know that?
Oh, I mean, we see the way, but you see the way Harambam brought the Mishnah in the Mishneh Torah, right? Because you can't say Betulani said Leom Revi'i Amalayim Chamishi Shepa'amayim B'Shabbat, which is explaining Betulani said Leom Revi'i, and it ignores Amalayim Chamishi, and then it doesn't even give a reason for Amalayim Chamishi. And then Bar Kapara and the Yerushalmi gives a completely different reason than the Mishnah. How could Bar Kapara say what he said, but the Mishnah said what it said? It gives a reason. So Bar Kapara said, no, Mishum She'ed Beracha. But the Mishnah said, the Rabbeinu HaKadosh, he gave the reason. What are you Cholek on Rabbeinu HaKadosh? Okay, you understand? All right. And now I'll take one question here. Go ahead.
But now, if the minhag was changed in a different generation, either the Beit Din sits on different days, or minhag like today, we don't get married necessarily on a Wednesday.
Right.
Does that still hold for today, where the 12 months would expire?
Yes.
Plus the Wednesday, or
Because-
say today,
so
you can marry her on Sunday.
So by the Mishnah registering this minhag, that becomes an official minhag. I want to explain to you something. So let's say, oh, our minhag is to do this. Our minhag is, I don't know, we turn our back to, we say lechatodi, everybody turns around and gives it back to their chal. Okay, that's not a minhag. I mean, not everything that people do is a minhag. You have the Bet Din, the local Bet Din, can say, for example, our minhag is not to marry Gerim. Okay, that's a minhag. The local Bet Din sat down, they deliberated, all the Dayanim, all the Chachamim, they signed it, that's the minhag. Right? Because the minhag is not, just for a group of people in the synagogue. Our minhag is that we eat lahbajin on Friday night. Ashkenazim are no good, they don't have lahbaj. I love the lahbajin, but it's not a minhag. So what people do doesn't become a minhag. What the Dayanim decide, they can make a local minhag. In this case, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, by registering this, it becomes a formal minhag of Am Yisrael, right? And therefore, A, it's preferable to marry on Yom Revi'i, and B, halacha l'ma'aseh, it affects the law of Yigiyah Zaman Benon Tzil. Okay?
But he was able to codify it because it was accepted by the majority of Am Yisrael.
I mean, well, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Bet Dino, when they did the Mishnayot, he had all the Chachamim accepted the Mishnayot, and the Mishnayot by default became the governing law of Am Yisrael because all the Chachamim accepted the Mishnah. Next question.
But for the Beit Din to sit on Tuesday and Thursday is not a minhag.
No, that's what I'm saying, because the minimum, first of all, we should have every city in Israel should have a tedinim. But as a practical matter, there were some cities, and that's why we have the law of Purim, Megillah Niklet, in Masechet Megillah, right? You can read it on exactly. You know, that's it. But no, not saying right. Yes, exactly. Why? So why can you read the Megillah before your Dalit? Because they used to come Batedinim on Monday, right? Makdimim Leom HaKenisah. Exactly. Okay.
Mother, I remembered you were mentioning about the boiler. When you say no heat, it's inferred any source that supplies the heat, meaning the heat. So it could be a boiler, it could be a tank, whatever.
Right.
So if the heat goes out,
right,
it's automatically given. If you have to replace the boiler, you must do that.
You must do. I'm sorry. You're saying that it is
Meaning in the lease, when you say no,
Yeah.
the landlord is supplying heat.
right.
It doesn't matter.
Right. Right.
How-
So what I'm saying is that if the lease agreement
Didn't
was
talk about
silent.
heat.
was silent on the matter, so you said, I was silent. I didn't say I never told you to give you
No,
heat.
so yeah, there's standard rules you have to follow. The
Since the
plumber-
Minhag HaMedina is to provide boiler, therefore you have to provide boiler. But there's a different example. You don't need to get into technical aspects of what the city code of New York requires, but you understand the idea of Minhag HaMedina. Minhag HaMedina has standing in Jewish law. Okay, let us now continue. All right. So we have the Mishnah. We have the statement of Rav Yosef in the name of Rav Yehuda, in the name of Shemuel. And now we are going to have something unusual. Amar Rav Yosef. Mare de Abraham. Rav Yosef now has a problem with what was just said. Who just said what was just said?
Rav Yosef just said it.
Right, Rav Yosef just said it. Yes, exactly. So Rav Yosef. Mare de Abraham. The Lord of Abraham Avinu. You're going to take a Tanya and you're going to make it contingent upon a non-Tanya. Okay, meaning you're taking our Mishnah here in Perek Aleph, Betulani said, you're saying what? It's contingent on a non-Tanya. What's the non-Tanya? The Mishnah in Perek. You're saying, why do we need our Mishnah? Really, we don't need our Mishnah, but the reason we're registering this minhag is because to explain the Mishnah in Perek. So if it wasn't for the Mishnah Perek, we wouldn't need this Mishnah. So first of all, why do we refer to that Mishnah as a non-Tanya? It's a Mishnah. Okay, so the yeshiva immediately answers the Rav Yosef. Hetanya ve'ela Tanya. Hatanya ve'hatanya. So the Mishnah, the students, the Talmidim in the yeshiva, Rav Yosef was the Rosh Yeshiva. So just so you understand, Rav Yosef was the Talmid of Rav Yehuda. He was the third generation Emorah. When the Rav Yehuda passed away, they had two candidates to be the Rosh Yeshiva after Rav Yehuda. It was Rabbah and Rav Yosef. So they had a diyun. Rabbah was Oker Harim, was very sharp, very deep, penetrating thinking, whereas Rav Yosef had Bekiut. So they decided that they should appoint Rav Yosef as the Rosh Yeshiva instead of Rabbah, because Oker Sinai is Adif over Oker Harim. But then Rav Yosef in his Anavai said, I don't want to be Rosh Yeshiva, take Rabbah instead. So Rabbah was the Rosh Yeshiva. Then when Rabbah passed away, Rav Yosef became the Rosh Yeshiva instead of him. So now Rav Yosef is the Rosh Yeshiva. The Rav Yosef introduced a lesson that he learned from his teacher, Rav Yehuda, who learned it from Shemuel. Now comes Rav Yosef, and he says, and what I just said, Mare de Abraham. Okay, I just told you what Shemuel said, right? But how can you take our Mishnah, which is a Tanya, and make it contingent upon that Mishnah, which is not a Tanya? So now the Talmidim, they interrupt. He Tanya, vehela Tanya, ha Tanya, veha Tanya, or maybe it was a faculty. The question is as follows. When you say our Mishnah is a Tanya, there's a Tanya, there's a La Tanya. Which is the Tanya, which is not the Tanya? Ha Tanya, veha Tanya. They're both Mishnayot. They're both part of the formal Mishnayot written by Rabbeinu HaKadosh. How can you say that one thing is a Tanya and the other thing is not a Tanya? You understand the question? All right. Let me read to you, because again, this has to do with textuality, and it's important to understand the concept of text. I think that what my father Alav Shalom wrote in the Golden Doves, it goes very deeply into the question of text.
Really?
Yeah, just one moment, please. I'll get to you in a moment. Yeah. Right. I'm sorry, go ahead.
When it says that the Tanya is dependent on the La Tanya, isn't the other one, the Tanya, dependent on this one?
No.
Because that's dependent on
Meaning
this to know
that-
when he has to
right,
pay.
the Mishnah in Perek Hey comes to teach us a law. That law exists independently. The Mishnah in Perek Aleph only exists to explain to us a detail about the Mishnah in Perek Hey. Namely, yeah, it's true that if the 12-month expires, he has to pay her, but not if it's on a Sunday. It has to be a Wednesday there. You understand? Meaning, our Mishnah here in Perek Aleph, its existence is justified by virtue of the Mishnah in Perek Hey. I want to now that I addressed that question, I want to now just read to you page 84 of the Golden Doves, the first paragraph. This is important. Again, we're dealing with text. And if you don't understand the concept of text, you can't understand rabbinic thinking, you can't understand the Gemara, and you can't really understand simple halachot. Again, I mean, you can understand simple halachot, but without the proper methodology, uninteresting things will come out. Textuality designates that which pertains to the structural and functional aspects of a text. Right? So this idea of textuality, it's a uniquely Jewish idea, right? So if a person is reading the Chumash, is reading the Torah, and he misreads a word, he misreads a letter, he misreads even a vowel, or he makes a milera, or he skips the dagesh, we're going to correct him. It's a text. You can't not take the text seriously. Right? So there's this concept of text as a structure. What is a structure, for example, in the Torah Shebichtav? You know, Ma'arichtav ha'at nach, Ma'arichtav ha'asot pasuk, structure. There's a beginning to the pasuk, there's an end to the pasuk. Then there's Perasha Setuma, there's Perasha Petuha, structure, right? Then there's a function, right? Different parts of the pasukim have different functions, right? Ve'ata tesaveh, why ve'ata tesaveh? Where does the ve'ata, right? Ve'ata krevelecha, right? Ve'ata tedaber kochach melech 3 times in the same parasha. Why ve'ata? Right? There's a certain function to that word. Okay. So what's a text? So textuality has to do with the structure and function of a text. Text is somewhat more difficult to define. Within the limits of this world of work, it will be defined as a composition designed for transmission. Get me a cup of water. That's a composition. I just said, get me a cup of water. But that's not meant for transmission. I'm not saying I'm wanting to transmit this to your children or to remember it by heart and then come next week, I'm going to test you about that. A text in Jewish thinking is a composition of words which were put together in a very specific way in which you're obligated to transmit onwards. So in the case of the Torah Shebichtav, how do we transmit the Torah Shebichtav? We transmit it by writing it down on a scroll, as Moshe Rabbeinu did, and then presenting the scroll to Am Yisrael, to the nation of Israel, where each tribe gets a copy of the scroll. In the case of the Mishnayot, how do we transmit the Mishnayot? By studying it Be'al Peh, and then by transmitting it Be'al Peh to the next, to the Talmidim, right? So it's all Jewish texts are designed for transmission, right? So now,
The Torah Shabbat is considered a text as well? Even though
yes, exactly correct. That is exactly correct. It's an oral text, and therefore it has different characteristics. But there's so much confusion in the world today. For example, people write down the Pitum HaKetoret, you know, with the Deyo ala Keraf, Mamash. I mean, confusion, Mamash, Mavhil al-Ayon, the level of confusion. It's an oral text. What are you giving the oral text the status of the Chumash? All right. Right. So you have the concept of transmission, okay? And then you have, and let me see if I can find this. Right. And then you have different levels of textuality. And one of the things that the Gemara deals with is levels of text. So you have, for a text to be presented in the yeshiva, we're not just going to accept any text. We want to make sure that if it's going to be accepted by the yeshiva as authoritative, that we conducted the proper verification, right? So we have a collection of halachot, let's say, in the archives of the yeshiva. We have baraitot in the archives of the yeshiva. We have imrot in the archives of the yeshiva. All these underwent study, analysis, and they accepted it, but they didn't accept everything. So, for example, in the Mishnayot, there were baraitot that were not accepted in the Mishnayot. That's what they call baraitot, barra, outside, right? They didn't make it to the level of Mishnah, which is the highest level of text in the Torah Shebe'al Peh. So Mishnah is the highest level. But there are some baraitot that had a certain authority. For example, Tanura Banan. Tanura Banan is not in the Mishnayot, but it means that the Chachamim accepted this baraita as authoritative. Then there's Tanya, a little lower. Then there's Taneh. So the idea of Kale Tanya Bidla Tanya means, in theory, we have two texts. We have two sentences. One sentence is ABC, and the other sentence is XYZ. ABC is the Tanya, meaning the yeshiva accepted this as authoritative. It's a high level of authority. ABC. XYZ is La Tanya. What does it mean, La Tanya? It means the yeshiva never affirmed the authority of this text. You have many baraitot, by the way. You have sifra, you have sifre. Not every sifra is halacha. Rambam made pesak halacha as he made pesak halacha, right? Sometimes he makes pesak, sometimes he doesn't make pesak, like a particular midrash halacha, right? So this concept of tanya and la tanya is essential to understanding Gemara. Okay, so now I want to explain to you. So they say, but they're both mishnayot. So they're both mishnayot. What are you talking about? How can you say Tale Tanya Bidlata, but they're both Mishnayot? And now you understand what the yeshiva is saying. What are you talking about? So he corrects something, and he says something very deep, very fundamental, not deep. He says like this. So he corrects himself. And by the way, he was doing this. I think he did it on purpose, not because he wasn't unaware of what he's doing. Okay. Ela Tale Tanya dimfaresh ta'ama. We are taking a Mishnah, Timfaresh Tama. Which Mishnah is Mefaresh Tama? Is there a Perush to the Mishnah? I'm sorry?
The second one.
Why? Where did you read the Perush of the second Mishnah? In Perek He? Let me ask you a question. Stop. Where do we have the Perush of the Mishnayot? What's the Perush of the Mishnayot? Tosefta, right? So the Tosefta, this is the Tosefta Kitchukav Sol Libra Ben Alav Shalom. He was one of the great Talmudists of our generation. Tremendous. His Bechut was really something unusual. Let me explain to you. The Tosefta is the formal Perush of the Mishnah. It was written by Rabbi Chaya Tamir Haber of Rabbeinu HaKadosh. And Rabbeinu HaKadosh, he accepted the Tosefta as authoritative. Now, there was a reason why you need to write a Perush for the Mishnayot, and my father explains it here. I'm not going to get into it too deeply, but I'll just give you like a sentence. When the Rabbeinu HaKadosh formulated the Mishnayot, his goal was not just to summarize the Torah Shebe'al Peh. His goal was to produce a super dense linguistic formulation of the Torah Shebe'al Peh, so that this linguistic formulation could be studied by heart, right? So he was very, not just precise, but dense in his language. And we'll see many sugyot. That's the same if we study, and my father discusses it in Golden Doves, the idea of linguistic density, fundamental to understanding rabbinic thinking. What happened? Comes to Tosefta, Rabbi Chaya. He says many of the Mishnah need to be explained because they're so dense that you don't understand the Mishnah. So he wrote the formal explanation of the Mishnah. Now look at this. I want to read to you our Mishnah, And I'm going to read to you the Mishnah in Perek He. Listen to the Tosefta. Perek Aleph, Halacha Aleph. מפני מה אמרו בתולה נישאת ליום רביעי? Doesn't say באלמנה ליום חמישי, by the way, right? You see again. Right. שאם היה לו טענת בתולים, משכים לבית דין. This is קניה, תמפרש תעמד. שאם היה לו טענת בתולים, היה משכים לבית דין. I explained it. Let's go to the Mishnah in Perek.
He said it was part of the Mishnah.
Right, no, so he's explaining. The Mishnah says, "Betula nised liyom rebi'i," and then he says, "Mipnei ma amru betula nised liyom rebi'i." She'im hayeh lo tana betulim, hayeh mashkim lebetim. This is the Tosefta explaining the Mishnah. Right. All right. And then later on it says, "Mipnei ma amru almana liyom hamishi," later on in the Tosefta, which you don't have in the Mishnah. That. All right. Tosefta Perek He.
Because if that versus the Amana, then we should be better.
Exactly. Now that was not interpolated into the Mishnah, that explanation of Almanah. But the Gemara is going to discuss it later on. We have in Masechet Ketuvot, one moment, it's Perek He. He says, yeah, הדגל בתביעה, נותנים לה 12 חודש. She gets 12 months, right? אם הייתה קטנה בין היא ובין אביה יכולים לעכב. That's it. בביטחון אומר נותנים לה הכל בתרומה. Okay. Any explanation? Doesn't explain. It doesn't. The Tosefta does not explain the Mishnah in Perek He. No explanation. And again, this shows you rabbinic thinking. You have a Tanya d'Mfaresh Ta'ama, and you have a Tanya de la Mefaresh Ta'ama. They're both Mishnayot. Isn't Mishnah is a Mishnah? Every Mishnah is a Mishnah. So there's no, you can't tell me one Mishnah is better than another Mishnah. No. Tanya d'Mfaresh Ta'ama is higher than Tanya de la Mefaresh Ta'ama. It's a great chidush, no? So now you understand what's happening in the yeshiva. So he says. So now we're going to see Rav Yosef's objection. He says, "Ela tale Tanya d'Mfaresh Ta'ama b'Tanya de la Mefaresh Ta'ama." How can you take our Mishnah and say the only reason we have our Mishnah, which is Tanya d'Mfaresh Ta'ama, it's contingent. Tale Tanya b'Tanya Tanya. What does it mean? It's like Masal Ma'ad Davar Domeh. So I have a hanger. I'm going to hang my coat on the hanger like that. But the hanger is on a pole, right? So I can hang my coat. But if the hanger is suspended in midair, I can't put my coat on the hanger because there's nothing holding up the hanger, right? So talet tanya bila tanya means you're going to take your coat, putting on a hanger, wonderful, but the hanger is in midair. It's going to fall. So lechach shaninu. I'm sorry. Ela itmar achi itmar. If you want to say it correctly, ela itmar achi itmar. Here's how you have to say it. I'm first going to read the Girsah we have in the Amal Abudah Amal Shemuel. Now, let me tell you something. First of all, what does it mean? Ela itmar achi itmar. I don't understand that. Rav Yosef, he just transmitted what he transmitted, right? What does it mean? Itmar achi itmar. I said, no. Amal Abudah Amal Shemuel. Okay, different reason. Similar, but different. All right, let me explain. Look at Rashi. Where is Rashi? I'm sorry, the Tosafot. Ela itmar is on the bottom of the page. Ela itmar, hachi itmar. You have to understand the original Girsah was Amar Rav Yosef. It's on the bottom. Right. Now, the original Girsah was, and we see it because in Shita Mekubeset, he brings the earlier Girsah. It's Ela Amar Rav Yosef, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shemuel. It's Rav Yosef saying in the name of Rav Yehuda and the name of Shemuel, just like the original one. But the Tosafot ask a question. They say, V'la Grosina Rav Yosef. You can't say Amar Rav Yosef, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shemuel. Rav Yosef Kufeh Ka'amar Ela Itmar. Who's saying Ela Itmar Achi Itmar? It's Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef is asking a question, and then he says Ela Itmar Achi Itmar. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shemuel. You understand the point of the Tosafot? So they say, even though the Girsah is Amar Rav Yosef, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shemuel, but the Girsah doesn't make any sense. All right? So I'm gonna analyze that in a moment. But first, how can Rav Yosef say, according to the Tosafot, it's Rav Yosef who says Ela Itmar Achi Itmar. How can Rav Yosef say Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shemuel as follows? But you're the person who has the Masoret. Meaning, you're the Talmid of Rav Yehuda. And you just said that your teacher, Rav Yehuda, said that Shemuel said ABC. I said, no. I know I'm Rav Yosef. Itma, it's not ABC, it's AGH. That can't be. It's a problem with the explanation of the Tosafot, which is the standard explanation of the Gemara. Are you understanding this again? The Tosafot are saying, who's saying Ela Itmar Achi Itmar? It's Rav Yosef. So it can't be Amar Rav Yosef, Amar Rav Yosef. It has to be Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shemuel. But if that's the case, how can Rav Yosef say that? But I'm telling you, my father told me when I was young that when you read this word, it's Pinchas, it's not Pinchas. No, but it doesn't make sense. My father told me you read Pinchas. So tell my father. Just say I disagree with him. It's not right. It doesn't make sense. I can't say my father told me to read Pinchas, but it doesn't make sense. So my father told me to read Pinchas. What type of logic is that? You understand the problem? So I want to explain to you what this means, because without you can't understand this. The key word here is itmar. When Rav Yosef says what he says, he presents it to the yeshiva. There is no itmar. Amar Rav Yosef, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shemuel. Itmar is as follows. When you have a statement by Emoraim, you would say the statement, Amar Rabbah bar Nachmani. Okay. But when you subject the statement to analysis, and you realize this statement can be accepted into the archives of the yeshiva, it becomes an itmar. Itmar is for an Amoraitic statement, what Tanya is for a Tanaitic statement. When you say something is a Baraita is a Tanya, what do you mean? This Baraita can be relied on. You can quote it in this yeshiva. We analyzed it. It's accurate. Go ahead, quote it. And now if I say Tanya, you can't just ignore me. It's a Tanya. Tanu Rabbanan even more. Itmar means what? I'm giving you now an Amoraitic statement that has been subjected to due diligence. It's been analyzed, and you can rely on this statement. In this yeshiva, we rely on this statement. That's what itmar means. Ela itmar achi itmar was not said by Rav Yosef. It couldn't have been said by Rav Yosef. It was said by the yeshiva later. Meaning, the yeshiva is aware of the problem with the statement of Rav Yosef, and they say, look, if we want to have something that we in the yeshiva can accept in the archives as a reliable statement that you can quote authoritatively, then you have to modify what Rav Yosef said. You don't have to itmar. Don't do an itmar. Oh, no problem. Don't do an itmar. But if you want to do an itmar, this statement has to be modified. You have to reformulate the statement in a slightly different way. It wasn't Rav Yosef who did it, as we're going to see later. Apparently, it was done by his Talmid, Rabbah. Right? So Rabbah, not the Rabbah with the hair, that was Rabbah Nachmani, who was the Rosh Yeshiva before Rav Yosef. Rabbah the Mechoza, who moved the yeshiva from, he used to live in, the yeshiva was from Medita. He wanted to be in Mechoza, not far from Medita. Be that as it may. Later on, so it appears, that's where the Ela Itmar Achi Itmar comes from. Okay? So now you understand the idea of Itmar. First, I understand the idea of Itmar. Very Hazak, no? Go ahead.
But how could you modify a statement and consider it still authoritative?
Right. No. So you're saying the original statement, as transmitted by Shemuel, something doesn't make sense. Now we're going to try to understand it. We're going to see in the Yerushalmi that it's not that Shemuel didn't say anything. He did say something. We'll see in the Yerushalmi later on. Shemuel says something along these lines. We're trying to reconstruct what it was that Shemuel probably said. Rabbi Steph quoted him wrong, Rabbi Doc quoted him wrong. Something. And one of the great things, and I love this, is number one, we don't practice idolatry. It's a beautiful thing about the Gemara. We don't practice idolatry. We don't practice idolatry, which is to say that gadolatry, which is to say, and this is beautiful, our teachers were fallible. They weren't gods. Not beautiful? Beautiful idea. Do you want to infallible?
Not our teachers, also our leaders.
Our leaders.
The whole Tanakh shows you flaws.
Okay. Even Alav Shalom, the greatest of the greatest of the great, Lo Kam Beisel Ke Moshe Od, never was, never will be, ever again. And even Moshe Rabbeinu made a mistake. He hit the stone. He should have spoken to the stone. Okay. So we don't practice idolatry. Where's he buried? Nobody knows. Thank God. Can you imagine? By the way, Rambam says that the tzaddikim, the chachamim, they wouldn't put a maseva because they didn't need a maseva. Divrayim and zichronam. That's what Rambam says. Okay, a little different than some of the things we.
That's what I cut out Rabbi Yosef from the.
No, so the original thing is Amar Rabbi Yosef, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Sheva. That was the original Girsah, but it wasn't Rabbi Yosef who said it. It was the latter generation. If we're going to bring the tradition of Rabbi Yosef, and it was a tradition of Rabbi Yosef, we can't ignore the reality. It was Rabbi Yosef who brought us the tradition of Shemuel, but we're trying to reconstruct it. And we reconstruct the tradition in a way that makes sense. You can see the new version of the tradition. It's not like it's completely different. It's modified. It comes in it from
his name out.
It's a wrong Girsah.
Other than this Girsah.
Yeah. The original Girsah, if you look at, again, Shita Mekubeset, Rabbi Besar Ashkenazi, he brings the original Girsah, right? All right? No, sorry, yes, sir.
According to what you're saying, I think it reads well. The only thing I'd say is that you read the Sugya Amar Rabbi Yosef Mared Abraham, and then Rabbi Yosef says Talet Tanya B'Delat Tanya, and then the response you said Hi Tanya V'Hai La Tanya. Yeah. Don't you think it works better than if that whole conversation is taking place in the generation of Rabbah, that in the generation of Rabbah, they're analyzing Rabbi Yosef's questions of Talet Tanya B'Delat Tanya, and they say, what do you mean? It's Hai Tanya V'Hai La Tanya. And then they answer Ella, because Ella seems to be a continuation of one thought process, right? Ella Talet Tanya D'Mfaresh Ta'ma.
Yeah, I like that. I like what you just said. So what Freddie, right? Freddie?
Yeah.
Right. What Freddie is saying is that the whole discussion took place after Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef says, then later on, when the Sugya revisited this thing, okay, so I think that's a nice point. All right, so now let's look at the substance. Amar Rabbi Yosef, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shemuel. Let me just open up my note. Again, I'm using these. This is all for my father. I'm merely a humble messenger here, not more than that. Okay. Okay. Here is the reconstructed statement. Same question, right? Same question. What's the reason that Betulani said Yom Levi'i? One second. Okay, he doesn't say Lefi Shoshaninu. In the previous, it said Lefi Shoshaninu. Here, it's not going to bring Lefi Shoshaninu until later. So that's why it's Yom Levi'i. That's so far as the Tosefta. Okay, nobody can argue with this, meaning this reconstructed statement is 100% in accordance with the Tosefta, right? So now the question is, so why doesn't she get married on Sunday? שאם היה לו טענה בתולים היה משקים לביתין, then you could be משקים לביתין on Monday. Right? So the answer is, שקטו חכמים, או שקדו חכמים על תקנת בנות ישראל, שיהיה תורע בסעודה של 3 ימים, אחד בשבת, ושני בשבת, ושלישי בשבת. זה חכמים, they were punctilious about the dignity of or the takanat, to make sure that everything is good, everything is proper for the Jewish girls, right? The Jewish girls should be treated with respect in a sense, or they shaktua that is important to them, that the Jewish girls have proper wedding, and therefore therefore a proper wedding, you need at least 3 days to prepare for the wedding. If you do it on Sunday, how are you going to prepare for the wedding? The day before Shabbat. You understand? So that's why Betulani said the Yom Revi, meaning the purpose of Shemuel is to explain the Tosefta. You said in the Tosefta, let me look at the Tosefta for a second.
Throughout the whole thing about Ochot Mishelo, he started the whole thing.
No, right. You'll see in a moment. That's an excellent point. When you get there, they're going to get to there from a different angle. They will get there. What's your name, by the way?
David.
David, nice to meet you. Oh, you're from Bet Torah. Very nice. Okay, nice to meet you. Were you there back in when I used to be there in the 90s? No. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. All right. I was there in the 90s and then I disappeared for a while. Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right. So look, I want to read you the Tosefta. So far, perfect. But now the Tosefta asked the question that was asked here. I misspoke before. I said it's not for the Tosefta, it's for the Tosefta. That's why I opened it up. In that case, do the wedding on Sunday, or le'achar Shabbat, do it after meeting on Sunday, because you said the betin is twice a week. It's on Monday, get ready on Sunday, right? אלא מפני שמתקין צלחיו כל ימות השבת, התקינו שיהיה נושא אותה ברביעי. Okay, little ambiguous. מפני שמתקין צלחיו כל ימות השבת, התקינו שיהיה נושא אותה ברביעי. So, first of all, Shemuel is explaining it a little more clearly. He says it's takanat benot Israel. The Tosefta doesn't refer to that directly. Again, what does the Tosefta say about getting married on Sunday? מפני שמתקין צלחיו כל ימות השבת. התקינו. It does say התקינו, by the way. שיהיה נושא אותה ברביעי. But Shemuel explains it a little more clearly. שקדו חכמים על תקנת בנות ישראל, שיהיה טורח בסעודה של 3 ימים, אחד בשבת, ושני בשבת, ושלישי בשבת, וברביעי כונסה. You understand? So far, it's very well aligned with the Tosefta, except that he elaborates a little. Shemuel is a bit more clear. But then, now we come to the point that, David, you asked. Now that we say that Shakedu Hachamim al Takanat Benot Israel, that the Hachamim were concerned and they wanted to make sure that the wedding will have a 3-day preparation. Let's now go to the other Mishnah in Perek, where we said that if the 12-month period expired, if the 12-month period expires on Sunday, since he's not able to lichnos, I'll explain what lichnos means soon, he doesn't have to pay. So it's the same conclusion. He connects it with the Mishnah Perek, but he doesn't make it dependent on the Mishnah Perek. Meaning our Mishnah, it has that Betulan is said Yom Levi'i, and it implies the law of Shakedu. How does the Mishnah imply the law of Shakedu? Because Betulan is said Yom Levi'i. Why not Yom Rishon? You understand? So the Shemuel is coming to give the Mishnah a little more substance. And it's saying the Mishnah says Yom Revi'i, it doesn't say Yom Rishon. Why? Because it was a takanat, hachamim, that she deserves 3 days of preparation for the wedding, right?
But where was the takana?
No, wait, hold on, just one second. I'll get to you in one moment. So the takanat benot Yisrael of 3 days is implied in the Mishnah. Shemuel brings out that inference, and then he says, and furthermore, because Shakeru, Higia Zeman, they are Shabbat, there's no law of mezonot. Because we don't want him marrying her Be'achad B'Shabbat. We want him waiting till Wednesday. You understand? That's the point. So it's not that our Mishnah is dependent on that Mishnah, but our Mishnah impacts that Mishnah. Yes, Mr.
So where do we learn the Shakedu?
Oh, no, Shemuel is telling us, Shekedu Hachamim is explaining to us the reason why.
But I'm saying that takana, where is it from?
Shemuel, he's letting us know that there was a takana. Shemuel is a source
It's not
for.
written anywhere.
No. It's implied in the Mishnah. He's explaining why when Rabbeinu Kadosh did the Mishnah, it was Yom Revi'i and not Yom Rishon. You understand? And that's why he says, "V'achshav shaninu shakedu, lo shaninu shakedu." That's the question you're asking.
So it goes back
Lo
to
shaninu. It's implied in the Mishnah.
So it goes back to the example you gave with the Dinei Mamonot.
Yes, exactly, correct. But it doesn't. There is no Tanya Talui, but not the Tanya. That's the point. Yes, sir. What's your name? Ronnie. Nice. Oh, your father is. I see. Okay, I think I know him. He's a brother of Rabbi Joey.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So this Hatana of
Yeah.
Israel, is it that it already existed, and by virtue of registering a minhag of Wednesday, it is strengthening the fact that it already existed by saying now it's official that we went on Wednesday?
Yeah, exactly. Because the Mishnah, and that's an excellent point, by the way. He just made a very nice point. It's not just that it impacts our Mishnah, impacts the Mishnah Perekeh, but it implies the takana, right? So we see through our Mishnah that the takana was accepted. That's why it says ve'achshav sheshaninu shakedu. Efo shaninu shakedu? Lo efo. Ve'achshav sheshaninu shakedu. There was no shaninu shakedu. Yes, in our Mishnah, choosing Wednesday and not choosing Sunday, shaninu shakedu. That's the chidush of Shemuel, right? That's the chidush of Shemuel, and this comes back to the idea of the Mishnah being extremely dense in its language, right? So that's why you have like people like Rabbi David Pardo, and other great Hachamim, or Shortanim David, or Rabbi Emmanuel Haideke, writing Perushim on the Mishnah and deriving things from the Mishnah. Those derivations are predicated upon the density, the linguistic density of the Mishnah. Yes, sir.
So to understand, so if it would just be registering a minhag, the Mishnah wouldn't have much legs. But since unraveling it discovers the takana of the shakedu, that gives the Mishnah its own.
I mean, it's not just that. It's saying as follows. In the previous iteration of Rav Yosef's statement, or Shemuel's statement, we were suggesting that our Mishnah's existence is dependent on that Mishnah. And then we're saying, no, our Mishnah has an independent existence. Yes, Shakedu. Shakedu Hachamim, talking about our Mishnah not only validates the minhag of Wednesday, but it also validates the Takanat Hachamim, Shakedu, that it's going to be a 3-day.
Every Mishnah has to have its own halakha to be.
Well, I mean, it would be,
We don't have any Mishnah that are just purely informative.
maybe there are, but we would have to study it. We would have to study it. Right, no, that's more like, that's because the nature of the content is more, right, but it was an interesting question. It's unusual, let's say that. It's unusual to have a Mishnah that just kind of registers a
The
minhag.
Mishnah is halakha.
Well, not always, because don't forget, when the Rabbeinu Kadosh wrote the Mishnayot, and this is an important thing that people don't understand, he didn't write the Mishnayot to make Pesach Halacha. He wrote the Mishnayot to have an official version of the Torah Shebe'al Peh that was accepted by everyone. Now, within the Mishnayot, you're right, there's a Tam Mishnah, there's this Tam Mishnah like Rabbi Meir, sometimes the Tam Mishnah is not Rabbi Meir. There's different kelalim as to how to analyze the Mishnah.
Halakha. When you learn Mishnah, you refer to halakha.
Right, he calls the Mishnah halakha, but you have to understand that the word halakha doesn't always mean pesak halakha. Like and this is an entire section here. So sometimes the word halakha means an official formulation. Because Agadol didn't always have official formulations. So the Mishnah were formulated in a very precise way. Right? So from this point on, if I ask you, you can't answer me, the correct formulation is, that's the formulation of the law. That's what has authority. You understand? Now you're right that the Mishnayot, it usually conforms with the halakha, but not always. Sometimes you have cases where the Ben HaKadosh may change his mind. And that's what the Gemara does. The Gemara helps us make the halakha from the Mishnah. Okay, let's continue.
Hey, Shalom, Rabbi. Can I ask a question?
Who's that?
This is Kasriel.
Hi. Where are you?
I am in Silver Spring.
Okay, very nice. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm well. Thank you. So the question is like this. Sorry, I'll stand outside because there's a lot of noise inside, and I didn't want the noise to interrupt or anything like that. But
Okay.
The question is, the Gemara gives two reasons why we have this lapse of time. One, because the man should have time to check to see if the girl's a bitulah, and the other because the Chamim are concerned that the Jewish girl should have a good wedding and whatnot. So according to what we're learning, what is the exact reason that is motivating the takana?
Right. No, the takana is motivated by the fact, and independent of the question of Mata Betulani said, the takana is motivated by the fact that the Chachamim, we respected our wives, we respected our daughters, and for us it was important that we treat them with a proper dignity. That's why Rambam makes Pesach Halakha in Chotehot. He says that a person should spend money for his own clothing as he can afford, but for his wife and children more than he can afford, right? So the takana has its own, reasoning for it. But that takana impacts the minhag of when the betula is going to marry on Wednesday and not on Sunday, right? For that reason. Okay, let's continue.
So if the Dayanim are trying to understand what is the motivation, are they going with the motivation that, okay, we care about the man checking that she's betula, or are both of them? Okay.
So exactly, meaning the first thing is it has to be betin the next day.
Uh-huh.
The second thing is, but we have the takanat chachamim 3 days. So if the takanat chachamim 3 days and the betin is going to be on Monday, you can't get married on Sunday because it's just one day of getting a preparation. Exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're continuing now with the statement, the iteration of Rav Yosef's statement, or the reconstruction of Rav Yosef's statement by the yeshiva. And apparently this was in the days of Rava. You'll see later on why we say that, but for now, you'll just accept that suggestion. Okay, first I want to explain the word konsa or machmisa. What does konsa mean? So konsa refers to the nisuim. And I want you to understand that the idea of konsa means in the nisuim, under the chuppah, he gives her permission to enter his domain, right? That's what nisuim. What is nisuim? Machnisa chuppah. He opens his door for her, meaning she's not forced to come in. In some, like among the Arabs, going to be forced. You grab her by the hair and that's it. Konsa means he allows her likanes. Very important to understand the Jewish concept of nisuim. So the kiddushin is done volitionally. She can choose to say, no, I don't want to marry you. And then the nisuim, she agrees to enter his house. It's a very beautiful idea. Very beautiful.
It's an invitation, not a.
It's an invitation, meaning very humble. It's not, among the goyim, you have this, certain type of barbarism, let's call that, for lack of a better word. All right.
Can you provide a more precise definition of shoched as a Hebrew word?
In Hebrew, it was of concern to them. Shakedu means when you act out of concern for something, right? So lishkod, shoked yom yom, because it's important to you to study Torah, so you're shoked al totai kol yom, right? So something that's of concern to you, of importance to you. You take it seriously. So shakedu means they took seriously the question of Benot Israel and the respect that they deserved. Right.
And in the beginning of Yirmiyah, like Kishoked, but they translate that more as like haste. Like
Right. Now I know, but I think Shoked means something that's important. This is important to me. Right? So even in Yirmiyah it kind of makes sense, right? The idea of Lishkod,
Yeah.
right?
Acham?
Yes.
Sorry, two questions. One, you mentioned Beraita. Etymologically, you said it has to do with what's not included in the Mishnah. But I read in Golden Doves, your father writes that Beraita is what's taken out of the archives because they're taken out of the archives. Is that not correct?
But you agree that it's not in the Mishnah, right? Barla.
Yeah.
Okay, right, because they had many they had many collections from many Chachamim, but it wasn't just Rabbeinu HaKadosh who was following Rabbi Meir, who was following Rabbi Akiva. There was other collections as well. But the idea is clear. The idea is that that it's bara. It's outside the Mishnah, therefore less authoritative. It doesn't mean it has no authority, because as I said, it could be different levels. Let me see, I want to find something here. Give me a moment. This is in the Yerushalmi. Okay. Where is it? Give me a here it is. I want to read you the Yerushalmi. On that Mishnah where it says Igia Zeman Velo Niseu, this is in Perek Perek, right? The Yerushalmi in Perek, it's Perek Halacha Gimel. Okay, just so you know where it is. Perek Halacha Gimel. I'm not reading from the beginning of the Halacha. Okay. Amar Shemuel Ahve Dirbi Berachya. Perek Halacha Gimel. Yes? Yeah, I'll give you a minute. Yeah? Okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay.
No, I'll look at
Perek Halacha Gimel. I'm going to read it. Okay? And as I said, it's not the beginning of the Halacha, it's a little midway through the Halacha. אמר שמואל, אחבד רבי ברכיה, והוא ששלם הזמן ברביעי. Interesting. What does Shemuel say? He says, הגיע הזמן ולא נישאו. Shemuel says, ששלם הזמן ברביעי. When do I say, הגיע הזמן ולא נישאו, אוכלו בשלום ואוכלו בתרומה? When the time is Wednesday. But if the time expires on another day, no. You understand? This is a primitive form of the original statement of Rav Yosef in the name of Rabbi David Shemuel. You understand? This is the earlier version of that statement. We have now a more, redacted statement or better edited statement. But the original statement was direct. It was the original statement of Shemuel was addressing not our Mishnah, meaning Shemuel directly addresses the Mishnah in Perek, where it says he says explicitly, so then the Gemara, the Yerushalmi asks, what if the 12-month period expires on Tuesday? What if the 12-month period expires on Thursday? That's a very key term. I'm going to say it again. What about if the 12-month period expires on another day? What does it mean?
They jailed him.
Yes, he becomes like a person who was imprisoned by the Chachamim. Meaning, he has to do the wedding on Wednesday. And because he has to do the wedding on Wednesday, if he doesn't do it on Wednesday, the 12-month period ends Tuesday, 12-month period ends Thursday, he's imprisoned. You're saying he has to marry her now. And if you don't marry her now, pay the money. Pay mizanot. You can't. Hafshu soferim. He's in prison because they want him to get married. 3-day preparation. You understand? Kimisha hafshu soferim. The soferim say shakedu chachamim al takanat benot Yisrael. And now the guys are praying. What do you want from me? I want to marry her, but the Chachamim say you can't do the wedding. Wait, hold on, improper. Don't do the wedding today. I said, it's not my fault. In the same very important point,
No, but then in that case, he wouldn't be responsible.
that's exactly the point of Shemuel. That's what Shemuel says. On the Mishnah that it says, Shemuel makes a direct statement. This statement of Shemuel is a statement that's directed to our Mishnah in Perek Aleph. But you see the primitive form of that statement in the Mishnah in Perek He, where in studying that Mishnah, Shemuel says, and by the way, that's why? Because there's a takanat soferim, right? That soferim wanted a 3-day preparation. You can't get married on Tuesday. You can't get married on Monday. You can't get married on Sunday. Even Thursdays don't go because then you don't have the betin on Friday. So ne'esak misha hapshu soferim is a key thing to understand. So you see the thinking of Shemuel. And now you understand that the Chachamim reconstruct the statement of Shemuel. When they reconstruct the statement of Shemuel, they weren't just like, oh, let's make it up. It's just, okay, pull things out of the air. It's very precise. Shemuel said, and now we understand what Shemuel meant when he said what he said.
He doesn't pay because he's in prison.
He doesn't, right, he's in prison, exactly. It's not my fault. You told me I have to buy the stock. I said 5 days, buy the stock, whatever. I'm just going to I can't buy it, it's a Sunday. Oh, what do you want from me?
If the 12-month ends on Tuesday, he doesn't have to marry her Wednesday because it's another 3 days?
Correct.
But he knew...
No, wait. No, that's not correct. No. He has the 3 days to prepare.
He knows it's ending on Tuesday. So
and he has to marry her on Wednesday. He had 3 days, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday to prepare.
We don't wait 3
but
days.
He won't pay money. He won't pay mizonot. If he decides not to marry her on Wednesday, then he's not going to pay mizonot. From Tuesday, he'll pay mizonot from Wednesday. Understand?
Right, but when Wednesday's paying, right.
Exactly.
We don't make him wait 3 days after the 12 months.
Exactly.
Why do we care so much? Because the rule, presumably, is for a guy not to keep his bride to be waiting the Olam Ba'ed with Adam.
Correct.
But here we're talking about a couple of days, a couple of meals.
Yeah.
Why is this such a big...
My father always told me, and this is based on Levi, he makes a very important point. He says that the Chachamim always wanted to give very precise legal demarcations to the law. You have to have a precise demarcation. If you don't have a precise demarcation, there is no law, right? Every law has a shi'ur. Everything has a zeman. At sunset, this. If you do shahita after sunset, the korban is that's the way Jewish law works. If you didn't have that, I think the Arabic word he uses in the Kuzar is mazbuta, if I'm not mistaken.
Mazbut means accurate.
Oh yeah? So maybe that's it. Okay. So the point is, everything in Jewish law is accurate. Now the guy comes to Betin, he had a McDonald's hamburger, and the Adim came and gave him hatra'ah, and they said, haram, it's taref. And you know that if you eat this hamburger, you're chayav malkut. And then the Adim come to the Betin, and they say, we gave him hatra'ah, and we ate it, and he says, afal bichen ani ochel, and he knew everything. Wait, what was hatra'ah again? Oh, you said it's taref. Oh, that was the wrong word. You were supposed to say it's nevelah. So no, there's no malkut. One word off. There's no malkut. That's the way Jewish law works, and that's the beauty of Jewish law. Otherwise, everybody's gonna have their own opinion, and you could have people drive us crazy and tell us what to do and what not to do.
But why wouldn't they then, if we were saying that they were mitaris and then 12 months later they get married, but just make a hishbon that it would fall out on the Wednesday or...
But whatever, listen, the guy's madly in love. He's like, he's
But I'm saying
he's
if
going
it's
for the
so
war.
important,
Wait, hold on.
to get married
I'm just
on
telling you.
So 12 months before when he's mitaris, he can't get mitaris till it falls out around that time.
They're going for a walk by the beach. The sun is about to set at this moment. The photographer is waiting. Our family is waiting on one side. His family is waiting on the other side. Says, wait, hold on, in 12 months? Wait, oh my gosh, it's a Monday. No, can't do it. So you're like, we want to give them the spontaneity, right? Even on Tisha B'Av, of course, it's going to be Kedushin on Tisha B'Av. Shemek Divenu Achel Ad Kedei Kach, right? We don't want to put limitations on that one. The guy's like ready to finally say, will you marry me? Right? He's finally ready to say it, but it's a long time, right? That's right, you
Then you
understand?
save
So
all
you see,
this trouble.
but you see, because otherwise you have all the trouble. And he's gonna say, no, I'm not, why did you wait till now, right? I got to find the right date on the calendar. Okay, yes.
Why can't we tell him that you have 12 months? Okay, if that falls out of bed, then do it before the 12 months. Then do the week before the 12 months.
Right, right.
By that 12-month point, you should be married.
Right. That's a point. That's
Why
right.
do
Why'd you
extensions
wait
of-
to the end?
Yes, time to plan.
Right. That's the takana. We like to let's keep our life simple. You have 12 months, falls on the wrong date. Let's go on. Okay.
That position is in the Yerushalmi. What they just said is in the Yerushalmi.
I'm sorry?
What they just said is in the Yerushalmi here.
Go ahead, elaborate.
That the 12-month period is right in the Bavli. We say that if it falls out that the 12 months ends on a Sunday and not a Wednesday, you don't need teruma. But here in the Bavli, we have brought in the Yerushalmi, we have Rabbi Hamar bar Okeba quoting Rabbi Yosef and Levi, and they both say Habbeshuhu Soferim, and that's a mahlaka with Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, who's halak whether it's Mahamat or Mahamat the Takana.
Right. Okay, good. Excellent. All right, so let's continue. So first of all, so that's a statement. All right? That's a statement. Lefichach. Now we have the word lefichach. Lefichach is no longer part of the redacted statement of Rav Yosef. I want you to understand. Lefichach now, the word lefichach means that what we're about to say now is a logical inference from the previous. Now, one thing you would know about my father is that my father hated the word logic or the concept of logic. Not that he was against rational thinking, but what you're going to see is that what's logical, right? There's always the antinomy of reason, and you can make a logical argument one way, and you can make a logical argument the other way. We're going to see in a moment what the fichach, how this works. We're going to go for another 10 minutes, okay? At 10 o'clock, we're going to stop. But let's do this, and then next time we're going to start from the fichach. But let's do it now. So you understand the word? What does the word the fichach mean? Some sort of logical inference from the previous. If you said what you just said, therefore I can say something else. All right? You understand the idea of the fichach? What? No, not different. No, not different. The fichach, based on what you just said. Allahu, let's say he became sick. Okay. Or shachaltahi. Let's say she became sick. Or shapirsa nida. Let's say she became nida. She can't get married. Beromer. We'll tell you why later on. Beromer. Eno ma'aleh laha mezonot. So the 12-month period comes, and he's ready to marry her. She says, honey, I have COVID. I thought you took the vaccine. Yes, that's probably why I have COVID. Okay, all right, I don't know what to do. Okay. Or halahu, honey, I'm sick. I wanted to get married today. It's a 1-month period. There's no payout. But I'm sick. I can't marry you. Or shepersanida. Right? Eno ma'alela mezonot. According to the aforementioned logic, eno ma'alela mezonot. He doesn't have to ma'alela mezonot. Okay, I want to touch upon this topic now. This is very important. The Mishnah in Perek Hesed, Higia zeman velo niseu. What does what niseu mean?
Get married.
Normally, who does the nisuim? The man. What should the Mishnah have said? Naseu. Correct. Higia zeman velo naseu. It doesn't say that. It says niseu. Naseu means he has to do the nisuim. Niseu means she's the object of nisuim, right? Nif'al. Why? What's the difference between naseu and niseu? No. Let's say. I want to keep it as simple, as close to the word as possible, because something is happening in this word. Somebody's switching the word. So I don't want to switch it completely. So it's nun, sin, aleph, vav.
Whether it's contingent on both of them?
We're saying that it's what?
Whether it's contingent on both of them or only the man.
So not exactly. Meaning, if you say he has a man velo naseu, what does that mean? He has an obligation to marry, to do nisuim, right?
Yeah.
Now, If a person is anus, he's anus. So he gets a man velo naseu, and now he becomes sick. He's sick. He's anus v'hamana patre. His obligation, you have an obligation to sit in the sukkah, right? Okay. He becomes sick. He's sick. He's patur. Okay. It doesn't say giaz aman velo naseu. It says niseu. We're looking at one thing. We're not looking at him. We're looking at her. Meaning, strict liability. We don't care what the reason is. She has to be niset. If he giaz aman velo niseu, he has to pay up. It's a very high threshold. Understand? The way the Mishnah was written is any exceptions? None. None.
Except if it's not a Wednesday.
Before Shemuel.
Right.
The way the Mishnah is formulated, no exceptions. Comes Shemuel, and he says, no, there's an exception. Now, to say there's an exception, and now you understand the lefichach. If you're saying there's an exception, it's not niseu anymore. It's naseu. You're looking at him. And he's saying, she has to get married. She has to be the subject of nisuim. And she wasn't. What do I care? So what Shmuel is saying, and the Gemara is going to say this later, is switch one letter or switch one vowel. Don't read it, higia zeman velo niseu. Read it, higia zeman velo naseu. The flash. Again, the Gemara will later on say what I just said to you now. It's going to be explicit in the Gemara on the top of the next page. Now, the question is, how can Shemuel do that? How could Shemuel switch the word from niseu to naseu, right? Interesting question. But okay, for now, if you're switching the word from higia zeman velo niseu to higia zeman velo naseu, now you understand the lefichach. Lefichach, if you're doing this switch and you're saying there's no strict liability, halahu, or shechaltahi, or shepresanida v'romer eno ma'aleh la'chazanon. You understand the logic, the logic of the Gemara. If you tell me it's not strict liability, perfect. Sababa, as they say in Hebrew. Let's do it. No problem. So no strict liability. So if he gets sick, she gets sick, she presanida v'romer. What does v'romer mean? And other situations, similar situations. Right? He got into a fight with his in-laws. I don't know what, something. Wedding's off. So then he will. You understand the point? Okay. So, and just so you know, this first sugya is the sugya kefula. We just did the first. We didn't even do the first half yet. We didn't finish the first half, but the first half consists of the statement of Rav Yosef, and now we're going to have the Ika Deva'ela Mivaya. Ika Deva'ela Mivaya means as follows. You said Lefichach. You gave me the statement of Rav Yosef. Niseu really means Naseu. And then you said Lefichach. There is an alternative conclusion to the statement of Rav Yosef. The Ika Deva'ela Mivaya means there is another yeshiva where they gave a different lesson and they reached a different conclusion from the statement of Rav Yosef. You reached a conclusion, halahu, hatahi, pirsanida, enom halena mezanot. Another yeshiva reached a different conclusion. The ika deva'ela mivaya, that for this yeshiva, what you're saying is, oh, pashut, halahu, hatahi, pirsanida, enom halena mezanot. For the other yeshiva, no. There was a question they asked, and they answered it differently. Okay, now, before we even continue, we have like another 90 seconds. I want to point out to you, usually when you have one version, and then you have a conflicting version, Ika de Amre, who is the halacha usually like? Almost always, actually. The halacha is always like the Ika de Amre. Always just look at the Gemara, you have one statement or one analysis, and then you have an alternative analysis that's different than the initial analysis. Ika de Amre, halacha is like the Ika de Amre, always. Here, you're going to have Ika de Ba'ela Mivaya, and the halacha is going to be like the initial analysis. not like the Ika Deva'ela Mivaya. Why? You understand the question? Okay. So there's a couple of answers. I'm going to give you the more obvious answer now, and then I'll give you the less obvious answer. The more obvious answer is it's not Ika de Amre. What is Ika de Amre? Lashon Rabim. What does it say here? Ika de Ba'ela Mivaya. Lashon Yachid. So you're going to see that almost all the poskim, the Rishonim, they make Pesach Halacha, not like the Ika de Ba'ela Mivaya. They make Pesach Halacha like the Lefichach. Okay? But the second point, this Ika de Ba'ela Mivaya happened in the days of the Sevoraim in the yeshiva of Ravaha. Ravaha's yeshiva, they have an alternative approach to the entire problem. We will study this alternative approach next week, but it is Sevoraitic. Not that it's unimportant. When I say Sevoraitic, oh, okay, that's it. That's the Sevoraim. What do they know about the Gemara anyway? Not only that, God forbid. But we're just pointing out that it's Sevoraitic. That's what we're doing. We're not trying to be critical or this or that. But it's Sevoraitic, and we'll study it next week. But just to summarize what we did this, I'm going to give a summary. I think it's important that we summarize it, and then I'll take a total of 2 questions, one from the online students and the other from the table here. So just to summarize, we have a Mishnah. We see that the Mishnah has 2 layers. It has the original text of the Mishnah as it appears in the Yerushalmi, and based on the original text of the Mishnah, we understand the question of Bar Kapara. What's the reason that it says Betul Aniseh? That Bar Kapara gives a completely different answer. Obviously, he was not dealing with the Mishnah that we have. He had an earlier version of the Mishnah. Okay, so we see that there was a Tosefta that got interpolated to the Mishnah. That's fine. That's where we have the Mishnah today. When I study this Mishnah Be'al Peh, I study it Be'al Peh as it is in our current text. Okay? We have a statement of Rav Yosef that comes from Shemuel, a tradition of Shemuel, an unusual tradition, which it appears faulty, not so much in the content, but in saying that the registration of the minhag of our Mishnah is dependent upon another Mishnah. The problem there is Taleh Tanya Bilat Tanya. And you cannot have a high level of Mishnah dependent on a lower level of Mishnah. So we have a new iteration of the statement of Shemuel. This iteration came in the days of Rava, a generation after Shemuel, Elai Itmar Achi Itmar. And this new statement is very well formulated. We saw what Shemuel said in the Yerushalmi on chapter 5, and we saw how there was an original takana which is implied by our Mishnah in choosing Wednesday and not Sunday. Wednesday and not Sunday as a day for the Betulah to get married, right? So we understand how the Chachamim had the audacity, and it wasn't audacious, but they had the audacity to reformulate the statement of Shemuel as they did, and then there's a conclusion from the statement of Shemuel. The statement of Shemuel changes the text of the Mishnah from Niseu to Naseu. What is the conclusion we can derive from that? And then there's going to be this Sevoraitic analysis, which is going to say this is not so simple. They're going to ask a very good question. They're going to make a very sharp analysis, and they ask a very good question to the conclusion of Leficha Halahu Haltahi. We'll see that next week. Now, online, does anybody have any question? Raise your hand, and you may ask. Go ahead.
Regarding the earlier part of the sugya, again, Talet Tanya B'delat Tanya. Originally, you explained the Tanya to refer to the Mishnah, but then in the answer, Ela Talet Tanya D'Mfaresh Ta'ma, you said it's referring to the Tosefta.
Right? No. What makes our Mishnah a Tanya D'Mfaresh Ta'ma is the fact that the Tosefta explains it, as opposed to the Mishnah Berekeh, which does not have a Mefaresh Ta'ma. It doesn't have an explanation from the Tosefta. You understand? When you have my father explain to me that sometimes you have Mishnayot that I taught that came to explain that Mishnah. And when you have a Baraita that comes to explain a Mishnah, it has a higher textual level than a Mishnah That doesn't have
But semantically, how are you translating the words Tanya and
of course.
Tanya?
Yeah, right. So the word Tanya here is used in a generic term, meaning an authority. Here the word Tanya means an authoritative text, right? So Talet Tanya d'Mfaresh Tama, B'Tanet D'Mfaresh Tama. That's what it means. It's used in a generic sense. Yes. Next
Isn't
question.
there-
Anybody got any question around the table?
So we have
Where do you live, by the way?
a deal.
In Deal. Oh, very nice. Okay, well, you have a long drive. Okay, you both live in the same house, I assume, right?
I know,
Okay.
I'm married.
Okay. So where do you live? Where do you live?
Also,
In Deal. Okay. Wow. Okay. Sechat b'Siyaot. Okay.
so this Mishnah, we said that this is describing a custom rather than a law, right?
Yeah, it's registering a formal minhag, and by registering it, the minhag becomes an official minhag.
Right, but then we have
And by the way, just mechila, I'm interrupting. You look at Rambam in Chot Mamrim, he says there's gezerot b'chachamim, there's takanot b'chachamim, and there's minhagim. How can you give legal credence to a minhag? But that's the point. There are minhagim that were formally registered, like this one. You understand? So this becomes a formal minhag. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't remember who explained this to me, but that takana is a something that it begins with the chachamim, meaning instituting something,
Yeah.
and minhag is the chachamim giving credence to something that began.
Maybe that's an
Naturally.
interesting point. Now answer the question you wanted to ask.
So then we saw that Shemuel is describing a takana of shakedu, right?
Yeah.
And that is a takana.
Yes, correct.
How come that's not meaning it? Is that?
Oh no, because that was a takana. If a person doesn't follow the law of 3 days, if I was a rabbi, I wouldn't perform the wedding. But if a person gets married on another day, okay, there's a bet din, there's no bet din here in the community. There's no bet din anyway, so
3 days.
right? Is there a bet din? I don't even know if there's a bet din. No, is there a bet din?
How do we have Sunday weddings?
What?
How do we have Sunday
No,
weddings?
exactly. Because today the whole reality changed, right? Today's shakedu, 3 days for a wedding. Are you kidding me? They'll throw you out of the house.
How do we go against Takana?
No, because we Baruch Hashem, today we are a little more we're a little more advanced.
They plan months
No,
forward.
right? We have to, right? Because the point of the takana is 3 days minimum. We went 3 months. I don't know what happened. I'm saying, Mechila, I feel bad. I keep interrupting.
The question is that we see this as the Betulani said Lomar Revi, we see this as a minhag,
Yeah.
but within the context of those times, it seems like you really don't have any other option, right?
Well, no, because even when Rambam brings the law, he brings it as this is what was done. There was no place where the law said, this answers your question, but it never says Hayav Adam or Asur Lisa Isha it never says that, right? So we understand. Number one, you should have 3 days for the day. Number two, that's when it was done. You're right. Over the course of time, we don't have Batadinim, we don't have Yom HaKenisa, we don't have this, but that's the way it was done. It was registered as a formal minhag, and you have to take it as such. You have to take it as such. It was not like Gavina. They say Gavina, not really Gavina, because anyway everything's made with rennet. No, but here minhag, Rambam brings it as it's describing what was done. It was descriptive more than prescriptive, to use my father's language. Gentlemen, it was a pleasure to have you all. And next week might be in the synagogue. We'll see.
Thank you, Acham.
Yeah, with pleasure. With my pleasure.
Thank you.
Of course. Take care.